Yeah, a quick recap of the previous methods, what we discussed in the previous class. So basically, we were discussing about collection of primary data, where we discussed about the observation method, interview method, questionnaires, schedules, and other methods. So in observation method, what we have is like a properly structured questions are prepared and then asked either directly or through some interviewer or something like that. Then proper observation is carried out for those responses, because when you mail the questions you don't get the proper response or you may fail to get the exact data, because some information from whom you are collecting may try to hide, or in especially the multiple choice questions or yes or no type of questions, you don't get to know exactly what. Under such cases, observation methods are adopted. And here in the observation method, what we discussed, structured and unstructured questions can be put. Structured in the sense you prepare the set of questions and throw at the person, and then for proper observation of especially the body languages expressions, a proper recording also has to be carried out. So when you carry out this and then interpret that data or the answers, whatever were given, on that you can get more information compared to either through Google Forms or mailing the questions what you get. So even though we have this, we have certain limitations on them, especially the cost and the time consumption, plus also the people who give information may not be sometimes authentic also. Then next method which is more effective is the interview method. So here interviews are carried out. Now we all know what are interviews. Interviews can be carried out either sitting in a closed room where the recording is being done, or through telephone calls also you can interview people. That is how these days the placements are happening. So first they observe it through the laptop or your camera when it is kept on, and afterwards the telephonic calls are also made to collect the one-to-one information. So any of these methods, whether it is through telephonic calls or through the interview or through a common set of like questionnaire, there are certain advantages with this and there are certain disadvantages as well. Now what are the advantages of this interview method? First thing, more information, that too in a greater depth, can be obtained in a shorter period of time. Suppose you carry out interview for 1 hour, lot of information can be gathered by structuring your questions. If it is unstructured, then you may get other irrelevant information as well. But if the question is structured, or if the question set of questions or questionnaire is structured, you collect a lot of information in shorter period of time. Second point is, interviewer by his own skill can overcome the resistance, because we have observed that some people, like when you begin the interview, they may be hesitant to answer. So if the interviewer is an expert and also he knows how to extract the information from the person, he can put that person at ease and collect a lot of information. And these people whom he is interviewing are representing a set of population. Now what I mean by set of population is like student community. Okay, some 2 3 good people who can communicate well are there to interview, or they are representing the student community. Similarly, another set of people, say the employee community, there again good speakers will be sent for such interviews. So under such cases, you have the best people, best communicators with you. So you have to collect the information relevant to your survey from them. So interviewer by his own skill can overcome the resistance of the person whom he is interviewing and can make to yield an almost perfect sample of the general population. So perfect sample means they are representing their community. So you have to, as an interviewer, your duty to collect the required information when they are representing the set of population. Third point is there is greater flexibility under this method as the opportunity to restructure questions is always there. Now, suppose you have structured the questions, it is well and good. Looking at the scenario, if you want to add or delete few questions, that is also possible when you are interviewing, or especially in unstructured interviews, you can ask or add more questions to the information what you are collecting. Not necessarily that the set of questions which you have designed, only those should be asked. If relevant questions, if you feel they can be added, you can always add in the interview method, which cannot be done in the questionnaires which you send through mails or Google Forms. Last minute changes are not possible in the Google form, but here in the interview method, it is always possible. Observation method can as well be applied to recording verbal answers to the various questions asked. Yeah, in the interview method, you can have even the observation also by recording the interviews. The next point is personal information can as well be obtained easily under this method. Yeah, if you want certain set of people, from certain set of people only their personal information, so that you can add more value or weight to the research, you can certainly have those personal questions. The next point is samples can be controlled more effectively as there arises no difficulty of the missing returns. Now, what exactly is this? Samples can be controlled more effectively. Now, whomso you are interviewing, you can take proper samples. Like you need not interview 10 people. You can interview 2 people and remaining 8 can be asked some other questions. Some other information can be gathered from them. And also there is always, like when you ask a question, definitely you get certain answers. But when you send the questions to people, some people might not answer all questions. There is a possibility. So here such questions the issues don't arise. Always when you ask in the interview, definitely certain answer you get it. But questions can be left blank without answering. When you mail the questions or when you send the Google Forms, this may happen. So the interviewer can usually control which person will answer the questions. Suppose there are 5 people you are communicating to, then you can select the questions, like whom, what to ask, and from whom to get the authentic answer. So you have the control in your hands. Next point is, suppose you want like information from many people. Under such cases, you can involve more people and can have group discussion instead of the interview. Group discussion where it involves certain kind of interview, but not necessarily the entire questionnaire should be asked. The entire set need not be asked to all the people involved, but a certain group can be asked certain set of questions. Next one, the interviewer may catch the informant off guard and thus may secure the most spontaneous reactions. Now, suddenly when you put a different kind of a question, which you are intending to ask, but the person is not aware, like the question set may be something like this. So under such cases, the spontaneous responses are also equally important in some researches. So such answers can be got by interview method. The language of the interview can be adapted to the ability or educational level of the person interviewed. Yeah, this flexibility always exists. In questionnaire, when you send it, you frame in a common language, where Hindi or English. And under such cases, if regional language people are more, then they may interpret the question in a different way. And the answer what you get may not be completely understood by the person from whom you are trying to collect the data. So under such cases, what data you have collected may be erroneous. But here in the interview method, you can modify your language if the person doesn't understand the question, and rephrase it and ask in whichever language the person prefers, or the preferred language of the set of samples. You can modify your interview questions. So language is not a barrier in under interview method, whereas when you send the questionnaire, it is a barrier if the person does not understand. Usually what is done is, to collect the data, in the regional languages only the questions are sent. But in cases like say Belgaum, border area, even if you send it in Kannada or Marathi, people who don't understand any one of these languages definitely find it tough to answer in that particular language. That's why you might have seen here in both the languages the questions are there, or in a common language like Hindi. So there are certain advantages like this with interview method. The last advantage is, the interviewer can collect supplementary information about the respondent's personal characteristics and environment, which is often of great value in interpreting the results. Now, what this means is, from his personal experiences, what he or she shares on the interview panel, you can collect certain implied results from that, which is not possible in the questionnaire. That's why in the questionnaire also these days, to collect that information, in the last question, no other information relevant, something like that is put, which is not objective or MCQ type, which is subjective. The person can describe, some description can be added there about his or her personal experiences in the relevant field of research. So these are certain advantages of interview method. Whether it is telephonic interview or one to one interview, you have this. But telephonic interviews, you have certain limitations, where you are on phone. First thing, people who have the network connectivity or properly can hear, only for such people you can have this telephonic interview. Plus, it is during limited period, always somewhat like spontaneous it is, because one to one communication is happening through telephonic conversation. So it is somewhat like spontaneous. So some people may not catch the question properly or understand the gist of the question properly and answer differently. So there is a possibility of some missing data in such things. So with these, we'll go to the weaknesses or disadvantages of interview method. First thing, it is expensive. Interview methods are always expensive. Second thing, especially when a large and widely spread geographical sample has to be taken. Now, these days we have Google Meets. So through Meets also we can interview. But this book, when it was written, it was not in the era of our Google Meets. Hello? Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am,
ma'am.
you're audible.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So this method is especially expensive, and when over like the sample size is very very high, say thousands or lakhs of data has to be taken, under such cases interview method is not suitable. So there the questionnaire only is possible. The next question is, there remain the weaknesses, there remains the possibility of the bias of the interviewer. This you might have seen on many interview panels, especially when relevant party interviews are happening. The interviewer who belongs to a certain party definitely asks very pointed questions to the other party members, or favorable questions to his own, like whom he supports. So such kind of a bias is always seen in interview methods. For some people they have soft corner, for some people they are very harsh. So as well as that of the respondent. So here also remains the headache of supervision and control of interviews. So usually we have what are known as moderators, where they go through these questions, and then if they are suitable for all the respondents over there, only then such questions are allowed to be put on the interview panel. Not to embarrass any people or anybody, such questions should be avoided. So these you can see always on reality shows. Sometimes the embarrassing questions are put. Sometimes people don't like it and they get away from the interview panel. And usually with politicians also it happens. So very popular one is Mamta Banerjee or Jayalalitha's interviews by Karan Thapar, where they got up and went away. They did not answer. So such ones are there. Even our prime ministers. So certain interviews are like this. So usually when you are collecting the research data, proper thorough checking is done, not to embarrass any person involved. Such questions only are asked. Otherwise, off the line, you can ask and collect that as a information, not as a data. So the next point, certain types of respondents such as important officials or executives or people in high income groups may not be easily approachable in this method. So, and also whatever data they provide may not be appropriate also. So they may give inadequate data. And when you consolidate that, you may get some erroneous results. So interview methods are not suitable for all class of people. If they cannot give that much of time which is needed to answer the queries, then it is not suitable, because lot of erroneous or missing data may be interpreted later. Next point, this method is relatively more time consuming, especially when the sample is large. So when the sample size is large, plus one interview may not be sufficient in some cases. So recalls have to be made to clarify whatever information you have collected. So it may require again re-interviewing or recalling. Next point, the presence of the interviewer on the spot may overstimulate the respondent. So he may not respond properly if he or she thinks that the data what he or she is sharing is not to the right person. Under such inhibitions, the data collected may not be correct. So some imaginary or insecure feeling if it is there, so the relevant data may not be shared by the person. So under the interview method, the organization required for selecting, training and supervising the field staff is more complex with formidable problems. Yeah, when you are conducting the interview, the people around you also should be very, very cooperative. Or it is not that always I want the information, so I am collecting I am interviewing. No. It may not be there always. An expert who is good at collecting the information may be there as somewhat like a intermediate person. So under such cases, he or she may not be knowing. The person who is interviewing may not be knowing the importance of the questionnaire. So slight twist in the question or the way it is asked or the way what is expected may be misinterpreted by the person from whom you are collecting the data. So under such cases, it may appear little complex to collect the information. Interviewing at times may also introduce systematic errors. Now, what this systematic error means? When you have designed a set of questions, in a case if 2 3 questions are not 100% relevant, then to every person you are asking the same set of questions. So under such cases, out of them what you want to interpret or derive the data, you may not be able to derive it, or you may not achieve the required data collection through that. So under such cases, if you have interviewed 100 people, then with every set of people or with all the 100 people, the same error might have got introduced. So this is called systematic error. So effective interview presupposes proper rapport with the respondents that would facilitate free and frank responses from the dataset. So what exactly it means is the interviewer should have earlier good rapport where the person feels confident to share whatever information is being asked, whatever questions are being put. He or she should feel safe to deliver those answers. Only then the data collected will be with minimum errors. This is not always possible because every time you don't know everybody. So under such cases, some missing data definitely has to be interpreted. So these are different weaknesses or disadvantages of the interview method. See, with every method, whatever it is, observation method or how we send the primary questions or scheduling questionnaire when we send, with every method there are certain advantages and disadvantages. Basically, just we list out few of them. All the weaknesses or the advantages we cannot see. First thing, questionnaire. Usual way is the primary data collection is through questions. So here you set proper questions, then reliability and validity test you perform through your regular tools. And once that is designed, you send the questions either through Google Forms or through your regular hard copies. But the advantage is you have collected and you have the sample in front of you and you can collect very easily the data. When you are sending in the form of hard copies, it is fine. You have a class sitting here, or if you send it through a third person or something like that, then the entire data, whatever you collect, may not be authentic from authentic person. Similarly, when you send the Google Forms or through mails, some people may not answer all the questions. So there is always a possibility that 30 questions you have asked, 5 questions the person has either not understood or not interested in answering, or just for the sake of sending that form, he's answering. So any of these reasons, you may not get the full questionnaire answered. This is one biggest disadvantage. Plus, you are sending for 100 people, only 50 people may return your forms. That is another possibility. So, you are intending at collecting 100 samples, but the resultant is only 50 people. Again, in that 50 people, all set are not answered. All questions are not answered. In some cases, you are unable to interpret the data. So you don't have any binding that all questions have to be answered there. So they may return Khali forms. Similarly, the Google Forms, that's why you might have seen like compulsory questions. The star mark is always there for some questions. So these are the basic advantages and disadvantages. Advantages, like it is easier way, most inexpensive way of collection of data. That's why usually what is done is, if you want 100 people data, then it is sent to 200 or 300 people. It is like somewhat like interviews, where you want 5 people to be selected, but you want to select them from a pool of say 50 people. Like that, if you want data from 100 people, you send the forms to say around 300, 400 people, like that. And out of that, again, you select which are almost complete. Almost complete in the sense all the questions are answered properly. So these are certain advantages and disadvantages of questionnaire. And scheduling. Now, questionnaire and scheduling, what I said, there is minor difference. Scheduling is done to a set of people in a fixed time manner. A set of people answer the same structured questions. It is not general. So you have scheduled that questionnaire to certain set of people where you are hoping to collect the proper data. So under such cases also, it is the same case. In interview method, though it is expensive and you need to interview more number of people, but because it is one-to-one, the same set of questions, one-to-one manner, and you have the flexibility of changing the language. You have the flexibility of again adding or deleting few questions which are relevant or not relevant. So some flexibility are there associated with these interviews, whether they are telephonic interviews or one-to-one interviews or in group discussion. Now, observation method, observation and this questionnaire and the interview, all these three can be combined if proper recording facility is provided to the interview or the observation method, so that proper data can be collected. In observation method, you have the structured question set of questions, plus you have the recording facility, plus you can interview also. So all these three can be combined in one, so you can collect more authentic samples. So with this understanding, now these are again the different same whatever the modified versions of the earlier ones what we discussed. So depth interviews or content analysis, what I yesterday I discussed in a group, it is done. Or these things, other things also we have discussed yesterday, but these few of these points I'll be taking up again as examples in the next classes. Now the next point is collection of secondary data. So first thing we should understand what exactly is this secondary data and why do we go for this secondary data and what are the means by which we can collect the secondary data, advantages and disadvantages associated with them compared to the primary data. So these are the 5 points we have to study here. So first thing, what is secondary data means? Data that are already available. So this often we have said on the websites or with the doctors or anywhere, say in audit firms, if you want the financial data audit firms, or if you want the share market related data on the sites of the share market. So like that, already the company data or any information is available readily in the public places, or it is already published for the public. So this data is not hidden. You need not ask anybody for the data. In some cases where you want the satellite data and all, in some cases it is paid. It is not freely available. In some cases it is freely available. Say the crop or the rain prediction or the temperature prediction for a particular place, district, state. All these data are available. Either locally they are available or in the larger space they are available. So usually the earlier published data are secondary data. So they are available in which forms we'll see now. Various publications of the central, state or local government, they are all available on these sites. Various publications of foreign governments or of international bodies and their subsidiary organizations, they are available. If you want any foreign related or border related issues or any import export related issues, they are readily available again on the government websites or foreign government websites. They are available in technical or trade journals, books, magazines, or newspapers. See, newspapers, whatever data you collect. Suppose the financial data collected from the Economic Times. This is authentic data. This also comes under secondary data category. Even from the books and magazines. See, we refer these IEEE papers or any other papers which are published on the authentic websites. All these give us again secondary data. Sometimes when we are doing the research, we compare them with the earlier existing results of another paper. So from another paper, whatever data you collect, that forms again the secondary data. So from books, magazines or newspapers, whatever data is available, that is all coming under secondary data. So reports and publications of various associations connected with business and industry, banks, stock exchanges, etc. That's what on the website, if you go to stock market websites, there are n number of websites related to stock markets. So whatever data you collect from about a company, say TCS or Infosys, where the IT firms, their products, their revenues, their market capital, or their profits with the tax, without tax, all such information, number of employees, and what is the market capital of that. Such informations are available on such sites related to company websites. Similarly, the bank related. Banks can they have to reveal certain data, say their profits, losses, etc. on the websites for the public, because the public has to go ahead with further investments or no. That decision can be taken by the public after studying the results. And the results of each company or the banks are published quarterly. So for every year, 4 results are available. So quarterly results can be compared or yearly results can be compared. 4 quarters and 4 quarters in the next year. So quarter wise, year on year basis, also the results of a bank or a company can be compared. Or say simple GIT. Why do you want to take up course in a college like GIT? Then you go for placement records of GIT which are published on the website, and the branches which you want to study and the faculty profiles. So all these information comes under secondary data which is published already. So before taking any of such decisions, whether it is investment related or education related, you do go through the websites, and these websites provide you with the secondary data. Similarly, any business or any industry, if you want to make an investment there, what you do first, ask people. If satisfactory answer is not obtained, then you see whether any information is available. Do they have any website? If website is there, what information they have published? Say the number of people employed there, or if you are applying for a company, what is the basic salary of those people? What is the highest salary? What is the minimum salary they offer? What are the cuts they make? What benefits they give? All such informations you collect only from the websites where the data is already published. So all these give us secondary data. So reports prepared by research scholars, universities, economists, etc., they give different data. So usually when a research is being carried out for earlier work, always we see the websites. In this field, a particular work has been done or no. So we have certain websites where the priori search is done, especially the IPR, the intellectual property rights, what we have in the last unit. You search for the prior work, any patent or any publications are done already in that. So on the basis of that, you think of carrying out further work. So this comes under again secondary data. Public records and statistics, historical documents and other sources of published information. So these again are available on the websites. These days, all this information is available in the soft form. Earlier, for any horticulture related experiments or anything, we would visit the horticulture department or like that. Physically, we would go and visit. But nowadays, this is not required at all. Any historical document which is already available with its numbers. Numbers could be either the results or it could be the previous year's records, anything. Say if you want the rain calculations, okay, last year on July 14th, was it raining in Belgaum? Okay, if it was, how much was the rain? What was the temperature? How many millimeters or centimeters was the rain? Was there any flood last year? Okay. Now all this information comparatively, it is available on the click of your button. On the internet, it is available. So these are the different sources of secondary data. Okay, next, in the next class, we'll study how exactly, what are again the means of collection of this secondary data, how to collect them, how to separate them. These requirements we'll study in the next class.
Okay, ma'am.
Any queries here?